this scenario. So let's assume that something happened on one beautiful day. Okay? Maybe you just bought a car. And when you bought that car was, pure, plain, and it was, it fitted into what you wanted. But you were given certain instructions. You were told that this car you just bought, you will not be the only one powering the car. That means when you begin to drive the car, you will have someone who is managing the ignition. Another person will be there, and that guy will be pressing the brake or managing the brake. And another person will be, I mean, managing the engine. So you have about 10 people driving that car with you. Would you buy that car? Okay, good evening. Would you buy the car? I guess you wouldn't buy it. But that is it. That is the way most people push around their finances. If you won't buy a car that will require manual management, why are you then managing your finances manually? Good evening and welcome to the Financial Operating Systems Bootcamp. In the next 7 weeks or 7 Fridays, we are going to be creating systems for your finances. This 7 Fridays is going to change your perspective on money. It's going to change how you make, manage, and multiply your money. And that's why we're here. I want to congratulate everyone who signed up for the Financial Operating Systems Bootcamp. The truth is, you're here for a rare information that is going to transform your finances. Now, most times you go out there, you hear a lot of things about savings, you hear a lot of things about investments. But the question is that where you should start from? One of the most important things everyone on a financial journey must do is that you must ensure that you manage your emotions right. Because to a large extent, people have made the worst decisions because of their emotions. And I did a research and found out this data that talked about how people have managed their finances. The emotions that run people's finances between 2025 and 2026. So it's a very recent data. So my first question to you this evening will be, what emotions do you feel anytime you think about your finances? I want you to think about it. What emotions do you feel? You can drop it in the comment section. What emotions do you feel anytime you think about your finances? Is it you're sad, you're overwhelmed, you feel burdened, you feel hopeful? What emotions do you feel? You see, your emotions to a large extent determines your financial outcomes. And that's where we're going to start from today. Your emotions to a large extent determines your financial outcome. So in that research, it was said that there are top four. Okay, so someone says sad and overwhelming. Beautiful, beautiful. Is there anybody else saying something about the emotions you feel whenever you think about your finances? You see, these emotions has nothing to do with whether you are earning well or not. But when you do a review, you see that it's quite different. The emotions you display or the energy you receive might not align with your pay. So this evening, we're going to talk about the top four emotions that runs people's finances. The top four emotions people feel whenever they think about their finances. The first emotion I'm going to be talking about, which based on that data was the number one emotion most people feel. That emotion is anxiety. I know there are a lot of people watching me right now that feel anxiety whenever they think about their finances. You see, 75% of people, based on that data, feel anxious anytime they think about their finances. And one of the ways they begin to, one of the trigger for this emotion is whenever they want to go out and get something, like you want to go and get fuel in this time and season. You might not really expect the price you will meet there. And many times, whenever people want to go out and make a purchase, most especially consumables, people begin to exert that emotion of anxiety. So, based on that research, also, it is said that only 13% of people will feel anxiety in their finances ever have a good financial outcome. So it looks like, to a large extent, there is a correlation between the emotions you feel and your financial outcome. 13% of those people alone get a great financial outcome. But this 13% also must have exposed themselves to a level of education and build structures to help them. The second emotion was shocking. I never thought that that emotion was going to be the second. Based on that research, the second emotion people feel about their finances or in their finances is hope. How many of you here are hopeful about your finances? That's the second emotion people feel about their finances, hope. So, but what was stunning is that of this, so it was 68% of people feel hopeful. So that means you can have anxiety and still be hopeful concerning your finances. You can have other emotions around you and still be hopeful because people believe that someday it's going to be better. But for most people who are hopeful, one thing they began to do is to learn about systems and structures. And that is why you have 30% of people who are hopeful about their finances will get a great financial outcome. I'm still going to explain what a great financial outcome is. 30% of people who are hopeful. So you can see hope seems to be a better energy, a better emotion. And guess what? People did better with hope. The third emotion people feel is financial insecurity. And for financial insecurity, 54% of people who were considered in that data felt financial insecurity. And what's financial insecurity? Financial insecurity is based on comparison. So people begin to compare themselves with their friends, compare themselves with their neighbors. That is the third emotion. And 54%, that means 1 in 2 people. So if you have 10 friends, that means out of those 10 friends, 5 of them are financially insecure. And that's why they say something. They say that if your neighbor wins the lottery, someone or a couple of people within that neighborhood will go bankrupt. Why is that? Because they begin to see the way the guy spends money and they're like, I'm not doing that bad. And then they begin to spend like the guy that won the lottery. So financial insecurity is responsible for how people, for the outcome people get in their finances. And guess, only less than 10% of people who experience financial insecurity ever do well in their finances, have a good financial outcome. Then the fourth one is the feeling of overwhelm. 38% of people, 38% of people feel overwhelmed by their finances. 38% of people. So I want you to take your pen and write down. You don't need to write it here. Write it down. What emotions do you feel? Sorry, for those 38% of people who feel overwhelmed in their finances, for those 38%, on less than 8% of these people have a great financial outcome. Now, there are many other financial outcomes. Sorry, 1 minute, please. There are many other financial outcomes people have. Oh, sorry. There are many other financial emotions people have, but those are the top four. So for you, which financial outcome do you have? What's your experience? Sorry, which emotions do you have? How do you feel anytime you think about your money? And that emotion is responsible for your outcome. So for most of the negative emotions, you discover that only a little portion of those people, maximum 13% of them, ever do well in their finances. So this evening, I'm going to talk about what kind of outcome, what kind of emotions can you um, experience, or what kind of emotion can you generate that will ensure that you can have a 75% possibility of having a great financial outcome. But before then, let's talk about what a great financial outcome is. So I've started in places in which I ask people, what do you want in your finances? And I hear people say things like, I want to be comfortable. I want to make a lot of money. And I ask, how much is a lot of money? I was talking to someone 2 weeks ago, and then she said, money to be able to afford everything I want. And I laughed. I said, the day you buy a Lambo is the day you become uncomfortable with a Lambo. You are now thinking of getting a jet. To a large extent, most people do not know what they want financially. And that was shocking. And that's shocking because I've been in places and I said, write down the number. How much do you think if you have today, you will be financially free? And I see people write bogus numbers. Some people would write 1 trillion naira. Some people write $1 trillion. And that's because most people do not define what a great financial outcome is. So I was talking to that same person, and then I said, okay, if today you have a 1 billion naira, what would you do? And then by the time she started talking, she had not exhausted up to 30 million before she gave up. And then she gave a wild guess, and then she said, okay, if I have a 1 billion naira, I will invest a chunk of it in stocks. And I was like, really? Who does that? In stocks? Do you think that's how the wealthy invest their money? Just pump it into the market and then, look into the app and start buying 100 million stock? No, no. So this evening, let me talk about it. What's a great financial outcome? Now, a great financial outcome differs from person to person, and there are three metrics by which we measure great financial outcome. Three metrics. Now, if you get these three metrics, you will stop running other people's race. You will stop running other people's race because most people are saying, okay, once I become a billionaire, and the truth is, by the time they become a billionaire, there is still more. But interestingly, most people don't get that kind of outcome. And most of them inch on hope without going through the process of building a system, without going through the process of building a structure, without going through the process of financial literacy. So, three metrics for measuring your great financial outcome. The first metric is what I call the security dimension. The security dimension. This is the first metric. Now, before you invest in any assets, you must fix the security aspect of your finances. You must fix the security aspect of your finances. What is the security aspect of your finances? It is your emergency savings. Your emergency savings. If you fix your emergency savings, your life will become a lot better and easier. I've seen people who have maybe invested in the markets, maybe bought a property, and then they did that with their last. And then you find out that when they are hooked, they are now calling and saying, okay, sorry, can I sell that property? can I sell that land? Can I mean, some would not even ask, they would just offload all the assets. And that's because they do not have emergency savings. The first thing you need to fix in your finances is your security, which is your emergency savings. What's an emergency savings? The emergency savings is 6 to 12 months of your living expense. What does that mean? That means you must be able to calculate how much do you survive on, or does your family survive on, within a month. Then multiply it by 6. So your living expense is the first navigator you need in your finances. Now, if you're here and you don't even know what your living expense is, because as every money comes in, you spend everything. Okay? You can begin that journey now. Begin taking notes. I mean, from the day your salary comes in, if you're a monthly salary earner, begin to take note of everything, because when you know what you currently earn, you will be able to build a system. You cannot build a system if you don't know what you spend. So your journey starts from there. So build that. Okay? I mean, begin to compile the list of what you spend your money on. Okay? I'm going to give you a system in which whenever you are documenting those expenses, you will not feel bad about yourself, because I have had people that I have coached and say they had to give up on documenting their expenses because they feel bad when they were doing it. All right? So, the first thing is your security. That's the first thing you must fix in your finances. So, you don't need to start with 6 months of your living expense immediately. You can start with 3. Or you can start with 1 and say, okay, this year I'm going to build my first security buffer, and it's going to be 1 month of my living expense. Start that this year. Okay? And that reminds me, before the end of this year, we are going to have an emergency savings challenge for people within our community. Okay? And I believe that that's going to help you. Right? So fix your security. That's the first thing. The second metric for a good or a great financial outcome is velocity. I call it velocity. Velocity is the rate at which your money grows year on year. So your income, for instance, the rate at which your income grows is velocity. The rate at which your revenue, if you're a business owner, is called is velocity. So this is it. This is the standard that most wealthy people use. And that's one of the things we promote in our community. Your income must grow by a minimum of 20%. So between 20 and 30% minimum. Within our community, I say 30%. Your income must grow by a minimum of 30% per annum. That is velocity. So that is the second metric for measuring a great financial outcome. Why? Because if your income grows by 30% per annum, it means that in 3 years, your income doubles, and that your income is growing faster than inflation. As a business owner, if you're just starting your business, if you're just commencing that business, you should be able to do 100, 200, 500%. One of the businesses that I do was able to do 500% because it was 1 year last year. So if you're a business owner, your business must be able to do more than 20 or 30%. So if your income is growing at 20% per annum, that means in 4 years, your income doubles. Next week, we're going to talk about surplus engineering. How do you engineer surplus? How do you ensure that you can create surplus? We're going to be talking about that next week. Don't miss it for anything. So the first I said is security dimension. The second is velocity dimension. For you to have a great financial outcome, your money, your income, your revenue, your profit must have a velocity, must be able to grow by a minimum of 20% per annum or 30%. Okay? By 30%, your income doubles in 3 years. So we are going to talk about how you can do that next week. Okay? So the third component of a great financial outcome is what I call the legacy component. Legacy. Legacy component. So what's a legacy component? The legacy component or the legacy dimension for measuring a great financial outcome is when your passive income can conveniently pay your lifestyle cost. So if your living expenses can be covered by your passive income, then that is the third component, right? So that means if you stop working today, you will still have a source that will take care of your finances. So where do you start from? You start from building your emergency savings. And then you begin to work such that your income can grow by a minimum of 30% per annum. Is it possible in this country? Very possible. And people are doing it. And that's why we're going to be talking about that next week. And for the people in the Financial Architect Accelerator, we are going to even talk about it. I think on Thursday, we're going to start from there. Okay, so those are the three dimensions. So the first thing I said you have to do for you to begin your financial journey afresh is to know how much you spend in a month. And then you can build these three outcomes. Okay? You can build these three outcomes. Okay. So as many of you that are watching me this evening and you are in certain situations, and maybe some might be troubling, some might not be as troubling, we want to look at where you are at in your financial journey. Some people here have taken the test, that's the Financial Archetype test. And that is very important because you need to know where the problem is. The Financial Archetype test shows you where the problem is. So I'm going to talk about the 4 types of financial archetypes. And the truth is, everyone watching me falls into one of the 4. And you need to discover yours. Because if you discover yours, you will know what you should do in your finances right now. And that's the high point of this class this evening. The 4 financial archetypes. Now, for everyone who registered for this program, we sent you a link. And in that link, we told you to take a test. And if you don't have the link to the test, we are going to put it in the comment section after this class so that people can begin to take the test. So there are 4 types of people who work, who live every day, who make a living every day. And the first type is what we call the reactive financial archetype. These are people who run on the reactive financial operating system. For these people, everything looks like an emergency. Whenever they make their income, they pay everybody. They pay a series of people. They pay lots of people. When they receive their salary today, especially if you're in Nigeria and you're a monthly earner, on that day, you're buying groceries, you're paying for that shoe, you're paying the mechanic the debts you owe him, you're paying the bank for the debts. So for most of those people, their income is never enough. Even when they have a raise, they still have the same financial experience. Everything goes. They spend everything. One of my favorite quotes says, if you spend everything you earn, you are a prodigal son. And that's because this is where the reactive people live. For people in the running on the reactive operating system, we identify them like the avatar of a squirrel because they live day to day. If anything happens to their income today, everything crumbles. If that is the financial operating system you're running, you're in danger. And there is this proverb that says that there is danger in the farm of a man called Longe, and Longe himself is a danger to himself. Most of these people do not know that they are a danger to themselves because every money they earn, they feel like a firefighter. They're stopping fire. Quenching fire every time they make income. If you're in that place this evening, that's not the end. That's not the end. Because if you go through the series of this program, you will see that there is something, there is a step you can take that will change your life forever. We're going to talk about that. So the firefighters, those that runs on the reactive operating system. You see, if you're that person in which anytime you earn, anytime you get a raise, everything still goes out, it's not a spiritual problem. It is not a spiritual problem. It's a system problem. You're running on that system. And most times, people run on this system even though they've seen their parents run on that system. Based on the data, data, it says that 75% of people run on a reactive financial operating system. Some of them will make so much money and give a chunk out. And we are going to talk about giving as we go into this program. In the next 7 weeks, we're going to be touching on that. So here's the question. Are you reactive with your money? Is your money like a garbage in, garbage out? Anytime you receive it, you're just waiting for the next month. By the time you have you receive that salary, for those earning monthly, in the next 1 month, in the next 2 weeks, everything has settled out. And then you can barely go to work. And you're sitting there waiting like the prodigal son, waiting for the next person to pay you. This is the reactive financial operating system, and many people run on this financial operating system. 75% of people are running on this operating system. As they make the money, and this is a global data, as they make the money, they spend the money. As they make the money, they spend the money. The money never seems to be enough. These people are dangerous to themselves because they are running on a system. And you see, the global economy even supports this, and that's why you have a loan there, you have a debt there that you can take even if you don't know how to manage your resource. So you take the debt for consumables. So for some of them, even as they begin to grow along the ranks and begin to make more money, what happens is they begin to substitute, they begin to take more debt to be able to maintain the lifestyle. I want to believe, we saw the test of some of the people that have applied for this class. And we saw that most of them are also in the reactive, they are running on the reactive financial operating system. If you are running on that financial operating system, I have good news for you. Because within the next 7 days, we will craft how you can get out of it. And this is it. You don't have to do this all by yourself because we would also want to help you. And if you have a friend, you have a spouse, your spouse also runs on this financial operating system, tell them there is an opportunity for them to learn how to get out of that financial operating system. That's the first financial operating system. And that's where most people live. Now, even under that financial operating system, there are two kinds of people. Two kinds of people. Some are living in the poverty line, and others are living in the poverty track. So, and this applies to business people. If you're here, you run a business, and every month, or maybe every quarter, or every year, it cycles out. The business barely made it through. You are also running on the wrong financial operating system, on the reactive financial operating system, because whatever you run on, whatever financial operating system you run on, is the same financial operating system your business will run on. So the two sets of people, the people in the poverty line, these are people whose income are not enough. They are running on the reactive financial operating system. Their income is never enough. Their income is not enough, even based on every standard. Some of them are living below I mean, most of them live below what the global recommendation of poverty line. So if you're that person, you're not earning as much and you're reactive with your finances, it is an operating system. There's an operating system that is running you. Because recently I heard about someone who was, I mean, this woman was earning half a million naira, and then she had someone who was earning 50,000 naira, and that person earning 50,000 naira at savings. But she didn't. So, but for most people who are living in the poverty line, what you find out is that they run on the reactive financial operating system. The second set of people are those living in poverty trap. Based on the standards of the society, you're earning quite well. Yet you are reactive with your finances. What that means is this: every money you earn circle out. You don't have an emergency savings. Your life is not so different. I mean, sorry, your finances is not so different from those who are living in poverty line. Everything circles out every month. Everything circles out. If you're that person also, we have a solution for you. So, but many people will say, okay, depending on where I am living, it looks like I am not earning enough. So we have this test that we have prepared. We have this test that you can take, and that test will judge if you are in the poverty line or if you are not earning enough, or you're in the poverty trap that you're earning enough, but maybe you are doing more than yourself, like my people would say. Maybe you're climbing mountains that are not your sizes. So that test is going to be dropped in the group for those that have applied for this program. For those that are in the WhatsApp group, the community manager is going to drop the test in the group. So you take the test, and maybe after this class, we would also drop the link to that test in this space. So when you take that test, you will see, you won't be able to judge, but you will be able to judge whether you're earning enough or you are doing more than yourself, like the Yoruba balance. Okay? So, and that's what makes 75% of people live in the reactive operating system and run on the reactive operating system. The second operating system I'm going to talk about this evening is the accumulative financial operating system. We recognize these people by the avatar of a beaver. Do we have beavers in the house? Looks like beavers are always willing to talk about the fact that they are beavers, meaning that they are not reactive. But you see, after the 75%, 15% of people are beavers. And in this part of the world, we have even a higher number. I mean, so it's not 15%. In this part of the world, reactive will be like 80 or 85%. And then next will be beavers. So what are the beavers? These are the people running on the accumulative financial operating system. Okay. What about people who went into business but end up with debts due to loss? Okay. So to a large extent, everyone runs in the financial operating system. I want you to stay true with this conversation. Okay. I want you to stay true with this conversation. Let's see where you are at. All right. Okay. So the beavers are the second. The beavers are the second. I could remember that I answered a question similar to this in one of the previous financial operating system session. But if I by 8 p.m., if I have not answered this question, please bring it up again. Let me talk about it. Okay. So the beavers are those that save their money. Okay. So they have two buckets. They spend one part of their money and then they save the other part of their money. Okay. I could remember when I started working, that was who I was. Because most of us beavers, we either learned that from our parents or we learned it from trauma. So I had seen my parents argue about money. I've seen that become a big deal. And based on what I see or heard, I discovered that it was because they do not have savings. So when I got my first job, I started running on the accumulative financial operating system. I was a beaver. So what happens is this: while I was working, I had colleagues, and some of them were earning double or triple of what I was earning. But within 2 weeks, even some within 1 week, they were looking for someone to borrow from. But interestingly, in that unit, people can check what is in your account. That was before I now decided to create to have another account and be moving my funds. So they'll go and check, and then they will come and meet me and say, borrow me money. And then they will say things like, the reason you have money is because you don't have responsibilities. No, I had savings because I was running on the accumulative financial operating system from trauma. So when I learned how these people, so I opened another account, and then I was running my Beaver system, sorry, my accumulative financial operating system. Yeah, and that reminds me, there was this guy who resumed I think he resumed 1 or 2 months after I started working in the bank. And then when he resumed, I think he has not been traumatized like I was. So he was told by colleagues, and people told him how they were doing it, such that once you resume, you get an apartment, and then that you get a big apartment, and after that you buy a good car, because when you enter the bank's parking lot, you see beautiful cars, and then some of those cars, I'm wondering how my my quote and unquote mates were able to afford it, but until I got to know. So he took on loan, he furnished his apartment, even to the extent of buying generator and all that. It was loan, all loan. I was like, I didn't say anything because I had been traumatized. But that trauma was for good, because I became a beaver. I did not start as a reactive person in my finances. So I think about 7 or 8 years down the line, we met at the bank lobby one of those days, and then he told me something. He said, Darry, you made one of the greatest decisions you could ever make. That till date, that 7, 8 years after, he is regretting that decision. Took a loan for a car, took a loan for everything you can consume, because he was living in the reactive operating system. You see, some people are not supposed to be living in the reactive financial operating system, but they live there because of the decisions they had made. And that decisions was wired by the operating system running them. So if you're a beaver here, let's do some maths. Let's do some maths. Let's assume that, and that's where the beavers miss it. Let's assume you wanted to save, you plan to retire on 100 million naira. Okay, because you know that our money these days is quite funny. About 20 years ago, 25 years ago, 1 million naira was a big deal. But today, it's no longer a big deal, especially for people living in cities. So let's assume you say that you want to retire on 100 million naira, and maybe your retirement, your RSA, will not do that for you. So you want to save 100 million naira. How many of you feel that 100 million naira should be okay by the time you're retired? Maybe in another 20 years. Let me not say anything to discourage you, but I just remember this other story in which Showore and some police pensioners had to protest. They retired on 2 million naira. But my question was this: what was the value of 2 million naira 30 years ago when you heard that you would retire on 2 million naira? It made sense. So, but let's assume for my beaver fellow, as at then, okay? For my beaver fellow, let's assume you want to save 100 million naira. How many years will it take you to save 100 million naira if you are saving 100,000 naira every month? How many years? How many years? That's going to take you about 83.3 years. And here's my next question: how many people on this call will live for another 83 years? How many people on this call will live for another 83 years? You see, that's where it's different. Another 83 years, you will not be here. And you will not be earning that kind of money. I mean, you might not be earning that kind of money if you have lived your life as a beaver. Anyway, if you're saving 1 million a month, it will take you 8.3 years. That means within the next decade, you will have 100 million. Maybe that sounds better. But let's say that 100 million will not be worth so much in that 83.3 years. I can just imagine that you're old at that time, and then that 100 million is not enough. What if we decide to mark it up and say you save 100,000 naira every month until you hit 1 billion naira? Let's say you save 100,000 naira every month until you hit 1 billion naira. How many years will that take? It will take you 833.3 years. Guess what? None of us on this call is going to be around at that time. Your children, your grandchildren will not be around at that time. So if you want 1 billion naira, it is not from savings. It is not from savings. Because the beavers feel safe in their savings. And most of the beavers, what most beavers do not know, that's people running on the accumulative financial operating system. Those are the people we refer to as beavers. What they do not know is this: is the bank says save money for your future, save money so that your future will be bright. They'll put pictures that is fantastic, that is attractive, and you feel like you want to save. But here's the question: are the banks saving those monies? So, what if you decide that you're going to save 1 million naira monthly? Let's say you're earning so well. In fact, that's just less than 1% of Nigerians that earn that much, and then they can have 1 million naira monthly saved. But let's say you are able to save 1 million naira monthly, and you want 1 billion naira. Do you know it will take you 83.3 years? If you want to retire on 1 billion naira, it will take you 83.3 years. And guess what? You would likely not be around, or you would have stopped work. That is why you don't want to stay there as a beaver. You don't want to live there as a beaver. You need to progress. A beaver, that is a person running on the accumulative financial operating system, is better than the squirrel. The person running on the reactive financial operating system, but then his future is still not safe. How many of you here want to enjoy your life such that in another 5-10 years you're having a different financial experience? Okay, that means the person you are today will be totally unrecognizable. To the person you will be in another 5 years. And that's because your finances shift. And the third financial archetype is where the change begins. The third financial archetype. What's this archetype? It is what we call it. We have the avatar of the eagle for this. They are the people running on intentional financial operating system. They're running on intentional financial operating system. Okay? So these guys are a lot different. And how did they get there? Most of them, every one of them got there through mentorship. So you don't pick that skills on the streets. Someone must have taught you. And that's why the bottom 85% don't even know what to do with their finances. They don't know what to do with their finances. So this third guy is a guy that is running on the intentional financial operating system with the avatar of an eagle. Now, these guys have at least 4 buckets in which their income goes into. And this gives them opportunity to grow and to plan. You see, I know many people have told you about budgeting, have told you about a lot of things about investing and all that. But if you sit down and you think deep down, you don't see the growth. In fact, for many people who are investing, by the time they get into emergency, by the time they experience an emergency, they go back to that investment and they liquidate it. It is because of the system you're running on. That is the major problem. And if you feel, okay, I'm not earning enough and all that, I've told you what to do. There is a test you can take, and the link is going to be shared in the group. If you're not in the group and you want to be added, you can drop your number here so that or you can reach the admin, and then, or you can just drop a comment and then the admin will respond to you. Okay? Or now you can join the group so that you can take the test. So the third financial archetype is the intentional financial operating, people running on the intentional financial operating system with the avatar of an ego. Now, these people are able to plan for their finances. There are four buckets in which their finances goes into. The first bucket their finances goes into is what we call the needs bucket. That's where the money, every money for their needs goes into. So this comprises of your food, your shelter, your transportation, every other bill. Okay, every other bill. That's the first bucket they have. Okay, so and then most times their income is automated. Now I'm giving you something in which you will not see out there. You will not see this out there, and nobody tells you, because the secret of wealth is kept from the general populace. You will not see it out there. Okay, so the first is needs, automated transfers to the needs bucket or to the needs account. The second account they have is the freedom account. What is the freedom account? This is like saving money for your freedom. But it is not saving, it is investing. So the freedom account. I'm going to talk more about that because people get investments wrong. I mean, we often get investment wrong. I started from there too, getting investment wrong. Okay? So the second bucket is investments, which I call the freedom bucket. Now, these people begin to pile up money into the freedom bucket. And that's because that is the only account that will make them financially free. Okay? That's the account that is going to buy them freedom. Let me talk a little about that. Because the first investment you should make is not in stocks, is not in landed property, it is not in Bitcoin. That is not the first investment you should make. The first investment you should make is investment in yourself. Investment in yourself. That's the first investment. And if you are in the FAA, you're going to get more about investing in yourself next week. It's a back-to-back thing. All right, investing in yourself. That's the first investment. Okay? So I've talked about the needs bucket. I've talked about the freedom bucket, which is also the investment bucket. The third bucket that those in the intentional financial operating system have is the needs bucket. Sorry, I said the needs bucket. I've said the needs bucket. The security bucket. And what's the security bucket? The security bucket is your emergency savings. And you remember, I had talked about this, that if you want a great financial outcome, you should have the first thing is security bucket. So your emergency savings is the security bucket. So that's the third place they have their money going to. The fourth bucket in which their money goes into is their wants. So sometimes you see that they are able to afford certain things. They do that because they have a bucket called wants. Now, for most people running on the reactive financial operating system, they don't know how much they spend on wants. They are not accountable to themselves. So how much do they spend on what? They buy snacks, they eat out, they pick that beautiful gadget without planning for it. But these guys ensure that they mark these four buckets. There is no one that uses this system that was not taught. And that information is not readily out there. And that's why at the beginning I said I congratulate you for being part of this, because you're going to learn the secret that is being kept away from you. Okay? So they have those four buckets. And then they automate their money, their income into those four buckets. Another thing about them is they build their skills. So investing in themselves is their priority. So you find out that most of these guys earn better than you do. You can be in the same workplace and then you begin to see the rise. And sometimes some people say things like, oh no, it's connected. Yes, it is part of it. You see, one of the skills that people on a job should know is to have a sponsor on that job. These guys always have sponsors. They have sponsors. But you see, the children of most poor people would always say things like, no, I don't have money does not mean you should not respect me. No, I cannot take instruction from anybody. No. But they don't know the skill that is required for them to grow on that job. They don't know that having a sponsor is very important. So they have skills that you might not see out there. Okay? I hope you're getting, you're getting great knowledge, great value from this. Okay? I want to see your emojis at least. Encourage me. Before we go to the fourth one, the fourth financial archetype. Thank you for that. Okay, the fourth financial archetype is the one we call the optimized system. It's the one we call the air traffic controllers archetype. We call them the ATC. And then they run on, oh, thank you. And they run on the optimized financial operating system. Now, this is where you say this is the Oga Patapata of them all. Those running the system often have multiple streams of income, and those multiple streams of income directly flows into different financial buckets. Those multiple streams of income flows into different financial buckets. Okay, and this is where you have the 1% of the 1%. Oh, no, you even have the 1% there. You see, one of the things I told my kids, I say that of everybody in the world, only 1% will get outstanding results because they pay the price that others will never pay. So if you want to move from maybe you are reactive with your finances or you are accumulative with your finances, you must first step into the intentional financial operating system. And many people get this multiple stream of income thing wrong. But this is not a day to talk about it because you see people open 5 different shops. Different shops, different small, small businesses everywhere. And they say, oh, I have multiple streams of income. No, you bought yourself multiple stress. That's what most people do. Add themselves multiple stress. Okay? All right. So that's the final stage. So here's my question, and maybe this will be good for you. How do you ensure that you have the right, what kind of emotion should you have that will increase the probability of making a great financial outcome? What kind of emotion should you have that will increase the probability of having a great financial outcome? Okay, thank you. Thank you for those comments. Beautiful. What kind of emotions? You cannot run on anxiety. You cannot run on hope because anxiety in the first place gives you a 13% chance of having a great financial outcome. Hope gives you a 30% chance of having a great financial outcome. If you're running on financial insecurity, comparing yourself with others, you only have less than 10% possibility of having a great financial outcome. And if you're overwhelmed, you have less than 80% possibility of having a great financial outcome. So what should you rather do? You need to enter into a place of financial neutrality where you are neutral to your finances. You see, if you are running on a system that is reactive, because most of the people who are in the anxiety band are reactive about their finances, always reacting, always reacting. You could find a couple of people in the accumulative, running on the accumulative financial operating system. You find out that those guys are mostly hopeful. One day it will add up. One day, but they don't sit down to do the maths. Reminds me of a scripture that says, who is that man who wants to build a tower that does not first of all sit down and count the cost? They oftentimes don't count the cost. They just feel everything is everything. Just do it. Okay? So, you cannot build your finances, you cannot build a strong financial outcome, a great financial outcome on anxiety. You can't build it on hope alone. You can't build it on financial insecurity, comparing yourself with others, running after each other, after someone else. You cannot build it on being on the feeling of overwhelm, the feeling of sadness. You can't build it on that. So you need to move to a place of financial neutrality, and that is possible for everyone. I'm going to show you how you can do that tonight. So the first thing you want to do, if you want to change that emotions, because financial neutrality will increase your chances of financial success to 75%. 75%. Okay? So what's the first thing you should do? The first thing you should do is to be a consultant. In your finances, be a consultant in your finances. Take a back seat. See yourself as a consultant. And then you see your financial experience as a client. That means you're the consultant and you're the client at the same time. So you see your financial experience as a client. All right. So for many people who say that the reason I stopped tracking my expenses is because it makes me feel bad. It is because you're not seeing it in the right way. So for those who have not taken the test, I want you to have this approach. For those who have not printed, who have not taken their test, their financial archetype test, have this approach. Don't judge. Have a consultant approach, because you know if you judge your client will not come back to you for business. Okay? So don't judge. The first thing is to be a consultant in your financial experience. The second thing you have to do is to work with data. Work with data. All right? So it's either you take that test, and then when you take the test, you can appraise yourself based on that test objectively because you are the consultant. That data you get is an information for you to act upon. All right? That data you get is an information for you to act upon. And for people who are taking down, who are just about to start tracking their expenses so that they can know their financial status. For those people, what should you do? Go back, print your bank statement, and this time around, have a different approach. See yourself as a consultant. And that's where review is very powerful. Reviewing your financial experience is very powerful. And the third thing you should do, the first, like I said, is to be a consultant. The second is to spool your data. Okay? And then the third is to make recommendations. So, whatever your experiences are in your finances, every weekend, Go back and review it. At the end of every month, go back and review it. If you do that, you will begin to detach your emotion from your finances and you will be able to take actions that will lead to financial growth. Okay? All right. So, someone asked a question earlier. Can you bring up the question again as I begin to round off? So, guys, this is what I'm telling you today. Today, you have understood, or maybe you have seen the emotions around your finances. After looking at that emotion, I defined what a great financial outcome is. And then we went to the 4 financial archetypes. I want you to write down what your financial archetype is. Write it down right now because you're going to say something about it. Write it down right now. And then write this confession behind it and say, I am I am a squirrel, or I am running on the reactive financial operating system today, but in another 1 year, I will no longer be there. You can also put it in the comment section. I am running, okay, on the accumulative financial operating system today, but in another 1 year, I will no longer be there. Okay? This is a commitment you're making for yourself. I want you to attend the 7 classes. Don't miss the 7 classes. Don't miss any of it. Because we are taking it layer upon layer. Next week, we're talking about surplus engineering, and you don't want to miss it. Surplus engineering. How do you create surplus in your financial experience? Okay, so the question is here. How does a person who is in debt from a business loss, grow his finances? Okay, this is a path that we have walked. Okay, one of the mistakes that most people whose businesses goes into loss make is the attempt to do a couple of things. Number one, tell everybody that give them the money and say money has gone, it is buried. Just yeah. While professionally, many people do that. Another thing they do is to attempt to use their their salary to cover it. While that is the first shot, but that is not the way to quickly get out of it. Because one of the things you want to do as a business person is to learn how to quickly get out of a bad debt. Is debt good for business? Is perfect. Yeah, debt is good for business. But getting out of a bad debt is a different ball game. So around 2015, I think 2015, there we go. Our business landed in great debt, such that then we were also working. So such that if we do not spend our annual salary for 2 years, it will not cover that debt. That's we don't spend it at all. It will not cover. It will barely cover the debt. Sorry, it will barely. No, yeah, it will barely cover the debt. So we saw that this was a problem, and we knew that we need to get out of this financial mess. Because the business was a family business. Myself and my wife were running the businesses at then. So what did we do? We stressed and looked for an opportunity that can pay the debt. So if you're in that place, you need to think without a box. You need to live. It might not be that business. That resource will not come from that business, but it must come from another opportunity. Okay, it can come from you using your high income, developing a high income skill or using a high income skill to get to pay that debt. Okay, but you can actually come out of it. We have used that method and then it worked for us. Okay, it worked for us. We actually looked outside the business to be able to fund it. And for most of our customers, we never give them excuses on why they cannot be paid. Except for one that had been doing business with us for a long time, and then we had never messed up with him. We just told him that we are in a dipshit, okay? That every other person is going to get paid, but you will not get paid. Until date, that person still does business with us. One of the investment funds we raised in January still participated. So look outside the business and then generate. But the first thing you should pursue is knowledge. Don't just enter into the market and start looking for anything. You must pursue knowledge. That's the first thing you want to do. Knowledge of what to do, knowledge of what can repay that debt. And you are not looking for something, if you have a debt of 5 million naira, for instance, you are not looking for something that will pay you 20K or 30K for you to, because you know the number of years or months or customers you have to interact with before you get that paid. Okay, so search for another opportunity that's going to pay that debt and then you can come back into the business. All right. Okay, that's my recommendation. So finally, there are two tests you must take. The first test is the financial archetype test. If you have not taken it, um, you can drop a comment or you drop a number that you can be reached on. So our admins will reach out to you so that they send you the link to the test. Or you can wait till like 2 hours after this class, links will be sent. The second test is a test to confirm if you're living below your means. Okay, that's the second test. The link would also be shared, and you can also join the community for you to get the link. I mean, that's the easiest way for you to get the link because we have a community where everybody that's going through this program is is currently residing. Okay, so but next week I want you to do something. If you have gotten value here today, you want to carry someone along. You see, one of the things that have helped me in my finances is the fact that I carry my spouse along in my financial experience. And then if she sees a resource that's going to also help us as a family, she carries us along. That person that is always borrowing money from you, that person that is always telling you about their financial struggle, you have the opportunity to help them. Send them the link to this program because next week we are taking it a notch higher. We're talking about surplus engineering. You don't want to miss it. Okay? So tonight, I want you to, that's the only thing, that's the only assignment. Next week, I'm going to give you assignment, but that's the only assignment I'm requesting from you today. Carry someone in your life along. That guy that is asking you out, that lady you want to marry, carry them along in this journey. It's going to work for you. All right. So once again, I hope you've had a great time, and I want to say congratulations because you're learning this, especially for people in their 20s. You hardly come by this resource. So go back home and then think about this, watch this over and again, and see the actions that can take you from being reactive to being accumulative in your finances. Thank you so much. See you same time next week.